Hello everyone, I recently posted an iron farm design on Reddit and people seem to have liked it. Now some people are asking me to make a tutorial on that, so I decided I'd made a video regarding on how to make your iron farms compact and beautiful. Before I begin though, I want to clarify that I don't condone any form of historical crime, violence, oppression, or violation of any rights because apparently my design resembled a historical crime committed by a certain dictator in the past. Though was completely unintentional and I'm sorry if my design resembled such a thing. The only thing I was thinking when building that design is that it looked cool and it looked like military troops parachuting down for some operation. But anyway, with that out of the way, let's get started. Now this isn't going to be an in-depth tutorial on the specifics of iron golem spawning, but instead I'm going to show you just the basics of a compact iron farm design and also what I think is one of the most efficient and compact iron farms you can build. I'm also going to give you some tips on how you can decorate and make your iron farms beautiful. So now we're at my survival world, where as you can see I built an iron farm in the shape of a helicopter. And this helicopter has a hole in the middle where the iron golems will spawn. There you go. They will spawn and then will be dropped into this lava chamber below, where we will collect the iron that they drop. And if you look at my chest, you can see that we already have a lot of iron collected from that single farm up there. Basically, I'm going to be showing you how you can make your farms compact so that you can put beautiful decorations around it like this one. And I'm also going to be showing you how you can make your farms efficient so that you can produce iron that is sufficient for your world. So let's begin. So you're looking at one of the smallest iron farm designs that you can build, because you can see you are utilizing as less space as possible for the villagers to stay, where they only have one block to stand on, and then we have this room for our hostile mobs to stay, where they can aggro the villagers. And we also have only two spawning platforms here, where the golems will be pushed to this block here and then fall down to the ground. And then above, we have all of the blocks slabbed so that the golems will not spawn here. And then we have this redstone here, where we use daylight sensors so that every time it is night, this window will be closed so that the villagers can sleep. So if I now put a zombie here and then set the time to day, you can see that the villagers will wake up and then will be panicked by the presence of the zombie, and then an iron golem spawned there, and there you go. So remember, the villagers need to have been in bed in the past 20 minutes for them to spawn an iron golem. If they have not been in bed in the past 20 minutes, then they will fail to spawn iron golems. That is why we have these daylight sensors here to close these windows every night. However, the problem with this design is that they don't work at night, because as I said, if it is nighttime, then these windows will be closed so that the villagers can sleep, and therefore no iron golems can be produced because they are sleeping. So we need to find a way for the villagers to sleep only for a few seconds every night so that they can spawn iron golems even at night. And the way we do that is to install a much more complicated redstone like this one that we have here. So if I just demonstrate this to you, if I set the time to day, and let me just push this golem for now. Don't worry, they don't take fall damage, so that's fine. But anyway, at daytime, the windows here are open, so the villagers will see the zombies and then they will produce iron golems. But if I set this to nighttime, as you can see, the windows will be closed. But they will be closed only for a short moment, because after some seconds, there you go. So now, after a few seconds of closing, the farm will open the windows again so that the villagers can see the zombies and start to produce iron golems again, making this farm effective even at night because the villagers are awake even at night. But how do we build the redstone? Well, we begin by adding in the pistons that will control our windows, like this one and this one. And so now, if the piston pushes this block downwards, it will close the window, and if it pulls the block upwards, it will open the window. Now we use daylight detectors, and specifically we need to invert the daylight detectors so that they will only be powered during the night. And we need to put a repeater here so that this repeater will be powered by this daylight sensor during the night. And then we need to put an observer facing the repeater and another observer facing this observer and a solid block here. Now what this does is that if this repeater gets powered, like when I set the time to night, so if this repeater gets powered, then the observer will observe that, and then these two observers will power both of the pistons, closing our windows. Now we also need to set this to 4 ticks for reasons that will be apparent later. So after doing that, we need another circuit to determine when we're going to close these windows again. Because when nighttime falls, right, this repeater will only be powered once, and so therefore this piston will only push these blocks once, closing the window all throughout the night. And so we need a way to determine when it is time to open the windows again. And for that, we need to use another daylight detector. And you might not know this, but daylight detectors actually input or output a signal strength that is depending on the time of the day, or more specifically, depending on the light level that is above it. And so if I just invert this right now so that we get the maximum signal strength at night, you can see that the maximum signal strength the inverted daylight detector can provide is signal strength 11, provided that there are no blocks preventing light from entering. Because if I put a block here, for example, you can see it's 12. But if I make it open here, you can see that the maximum is 11. Now, this signal strength is actually not constant, because if I just set the time to night, where the sun just began to set, you can see that the signal strength is actually changing here. So from 6 to 7 to 8, eventually it will reach 11, and that is the maximum signal strength that it can provide. So now we can actually use this mechanism to trigger these pistons once this daylight sensor reached a signal strength of 11. So the way we do that is to, of course, have a constant signal here that is signal strength 10, and then once the daylight sensor is powerful enough to change this to 11, then we can detect the change and then power our pistons using observers. So let me now do that. So we need a comparator, we need a hopper, and then we also need many stacks of items. So like this one. So we put a comparator here, and then we put a hopper here and then a comparator. And if I put items inside this hopper, so if I remove this for now, as you can see, the comparator outputs a signal strength that depends on the number of items inside this hopper. So we want this to be 10, because we want this to only change whenever it is dark enough, right? Because our daylight detector, our inverted daylight detector, will only output a signal strength of 11 when it is dark enough, like right now. So we need to keep this constant at 10 all the time, and the number of items required is actually 3 full stacks of items and then 14. And then we need to put a daylight detector here and invert that, and then we just need to put observers to observe that change. So this one, and then this one, and then a block this one. Then of course, if you don't want your golems to spawn on top of your platform or redstone, then just use slabs. So now if I set the time to day, as you can see, our windows will be opened. Now if I set the time to night again, as you can see, it is not dark enough for this daylight sensor to provide a signal strength of 11, and so therefore the only one that powered the piston is this one. So when it is nighttime, this one will trigger the observer and in turn trigger the piston, closing our window. But as the sky gets darker and the signal gets, or this daylight detector gets stronger, we should expect that at some point this redstone here should turn to 11 and open the windows again. So yeah, this is basically the basics, the fundamentals of an efficient iron farm design, where you have a controlled opening and closing of your windows. So now the challenge is you just need to add your villagers here and your zombies or hostile mobs in both of these rooms, so that they can now start to produce iron golems. So after doing all of this redstone, it's up to us to decide on what spawning platform we want to use. So in this case, I just used a simple water stream so that when the golems spawn, they will just be pushed off the edge and fall down to the ground. But for this design, I used slime blocks because the golems are more than 2 blocks tall. When they spawn in this single block here, they will trigger this tripwire hook and in turn trigger the piston behind this slime block, and therefore the golems will be pushed and they will fall down. But how do we create that slime block launcher? Well, the first thing that we need to do is to put a trigger system here, and for that we're going to use tripwire hooks, and then we need to put a piston below that and then a slime block on the piston. And then we just need to cover all of these parts up and also these parts, and then we just need to add in non-sticky blocks here like furnaces, so that when the slime block moves, the furnaces will not be dragged along. Now we need to add more furnaces here so that the slime won't, if the slime moves here, they won't be dragged along too. So now we also just need to slab all of these up so that nothing spawns in here, and then we just need to cover all of these up. And then for our spawning platform, we can use ice or we can use normal blocks. As long as if you use normal blocks, it needs to be only one block for the spawning platform, because there's a chance that a golem can spawn here and then be pushed by the slime but will not fall because of the friction of your blocks here. So that is why I'm using ice for this example. Now we need to put in the other end of our tripwire hook. Just this one. And then the string. So now I'm going to show you some of the possible decorations you can build around your farm. The first one, of course, will be a helicopter. And this one is my original design for the one that I built in my survival world. So this is the one where I based my survival helicopter from. So as you can see, this just uses the basic daylight sensor redstone for the farm. So this farm is not functional at night, but it is functional at day. But nevertheless, it looks pretty from below because there is a helicopter there and iron golems will be dropping down from that helicopter. And the way I imagine that actually is that I imagine iron golems to be some sort of paratroopers or military personnel where they are parachuting from the helicopter down to the ground to perform some military operation. The next thing that I'm going to show you is arguably cooler, and that is an airplane. Yes, because if you look above, you can see that there is a massive airplane here. And yes, this might be a bit of an overkill because the farm is actually just this one here. This is the only part of the airplane that is functional, and the rest is actually just for decorations. But if you look at it from the ground, it looks very, very cool, and I think that is the point of building decorations around your farms, to make it look cool and beautiful. Now this farm actually uses the more sophisticated redstone contraption here, so that means that this farm actually works at night also. Now if you look at here, we can see that I'm using the slime block launcher, and if iron golems spawn here, they will just drop down. Dive. So I'm imagining this plane to be some sort of a skydiving plane where people can use to have fun. So it's really up to our creativity to decorate our farms. Someone once mentioned that they built a hot air balloon around their iron farm. Maybe you can also build a ship around it. But the point is, just let your imagination run wild and maybe you can come up with something that fits. So that's it from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe see you next time.